howdy. Amy, do you know if everybody's on?
Not quite yet. Let me do a
Not quite yet. Okay. No problem. No problem. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, let's give them until like 1 after.
No problem. No problem. I'm going to send you back to my overhead screen.
Okay. One of the mini screens.
Oh, here's a little preview. This is me. This is our still life. And this is our overhead.
Cool. See, you're going to make the rest of us look bad in terms of your ability to use. So, I'm like bouncing back and forth between different websites this morning, trying to, do both the walking lecture at Fort to See and then also the Edmonds thing. I mean, this is going to make me look bad. Well,
the thing is, the tech part is my job.
I know.
This is what I do to make a living. So it's not a surprise. It looks like we got Peyton coming on here. Yeah, so I have some cameras set up. It's gonna be pretty fun. I have just some kind of simple concepts we're gonna go through and do some examples and some exercises, and should be pretty fun.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yes. All right, got another person coming in. Perfect. Does that seem like the group, Amy, or do we still have some more?
We still got at least one more, or no, 2 more to come.
Okay, great. You get to look at my pad again. Or I'll let you look at the pumpkins. Why not the pumpkins? That's probably more exciting.
Excitement of pumpkins.
Yes, and the pumpkins will make sense eventually. How'd your thing go today? It
went really well, I think.
Good.
I'm like, look around, see if there's nods. It was
horrible. Do you record them all?
No.
Okay. Because I'm recording this one in case you want to use it for something else, like a paperweight or something.
So Tom, I'm going to pop out and just run over to our other regular Zoom thing and see if anybody accidentally ended up there.
Oh yeah, sounds good. I'll be here.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay. Welcome back, Amy.
Amy, this is Jane. I got a message from Michaela. She said she's trying to join. She's having Wi-Fi troubles.
Okay, cool. So Tom, let's give Michaela a few more minutes here.
Yeah, no problem. And back to pumpkins. Amy, can you anticipate why the pumpkins are there?
No. Let's see. Oh.
It's my magic trick. No. The interesting thing about these Zoom and live stream things, it's amazing. Like that tech thing, that connection thing is just,
Mhm.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you're like, I did a big event live stream thing, and like my biggest worry was not like how the show was going to go. It was like, will the connection work? Because if the connection doesn't work, you're screwed.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started, I think.
Sure. Yeah, we can just, I mean, I can just kind of introduce myself and stuff, and then
Yep.
people hop in. I can just kind of see them on here and get them all logged in.
Okay, sounds good.
So everybody, my name is Thomas Cook, and I am Amy Cook's brother, and I'm a photographer and painter in Portland, Oregon. And my specialties are in drawing, are life drawing and landscape. But today I wanted to show you guys how to apply some observation and drawing techniques in respect to scientific illustration through lighting and contrast and shading. And the workshop will be about an hour, but I'm available afterwards if you guys have any questions or want to show me your projects or anything like that. And also if you want to do it, you know, at a later date or something, I'm happy to take a look at stuff. So since this is a general biology course, I wanted to touch on how lighting and contrast relates to like depicting objects in nature in scientific illustration, but also the concepts that can be applied to any subject matter. The subjects I chose today, the pumpkins, the subjects I chose today are 3 different versions of pumpkins, but they could be anything you were looking to describe and compare attributes in your drawing and illustrations. The same principles would apply, you know, for pine cones and shells or leaves, you know, squirrels, etc. The biggest rule I find in realistic drawing, and even more so in scientific illustration, is the kind of the quote of, you know, draw what you see and not what you know. One of the big things with that is the reason I chose the pumpkins is everybody knows what a pumpkin looks like, but drawing what you see as accurately as possible, you know, is super helpful to getting an accurate, you know, depiction. For example, like a chair, you know, it's got a square top and 4 equal, you know, legs, but in a drawing or seeing it in a 3-dimensional thing and applying it to a 2-dimensional drawing, all the legs are different lengths, as we all know, and the, you know, the flat of the chair is going to be, you know, it's not a square, it's a, you know, a polygon and all that kind of stuff. So our examples today fall into the category of that kind of preconception about the object. You know that, you know, pumpkins look like, but what does this pumpkin really look like? And the first thing you need to do to determine, like when you're doing a drawing in the field, and less so in the studio, is, you know, how much time do I have to capture this drawing? If your subject's like an active thing like a bird or a mouse, this assessment is rather critical. If your subject is a static thing like a mushroom or a patch of moss or something like that, you have more leeway to make a more in-depth assessment of how you're rendering your subject. And a good exercise to do, and we're going to do it later, is to practice this, to give yourself like timed exercises. And I start with, you know, things as short as 15 seconds, you know, capturing that moment. And don't choose that time predictably, I found. This will help tune your brain like to be more flexible in real world situations. I'm going to have us draw cards of how long we're going to draw the pumpkins, or how long I'm going to draw the pumpkins. You guys don't have to, but I'm going to like draw a card, and it'll be the number plus, you know, 0 plus 10 seconds. So it'll be, or I'm sorry, if it's a 2, it's 20 seconds, etc. And I haven't drawn this yet, so it'll kind of give you a feeling for just like what you want to do. Because the difference I find with the difference between like a nature drawing, which is what I'm much more used to doing, and a technical illustration, is taking the artistic taking the artistic eye out of it. You're trying to depict a thing, and so the second factor to be aware of, like when it comes to like the viewing, is lighting. And in the field, there's no way to control the lighting you're presented with, but what you can kind of do is try to train your eye to look past the variety in lighting to create an accurate and informative illustration. For example, the pumpkins again. I gave you kind of a rather odd lighting condition today. It's a little bit backlit, and it's got multiple light sources and things like that. But if you're kind of trying to do a scientific illustration based on these objects, you want to boil it down to what's important and take away the aspects that are about today. So the lighting is about today. The shapes are about what they really are about. And those lighting conditions can vary, in all kinds of different ways. The intensity and the direction and the quality of light is all going to change how and affect how your subject looks, but not how your subject is. So I tend to like figure out, when you're trying to define a thing for nature drawing or for scientific illustration, determining the direction of the light source is always important, because that helps to describe shapes and masses and things like that. You're going to want to remove the extraneous lighting effects like that I've put on here, and try to determine how the light defines the form of the object. And from the lighting condition and the direction, we kind of move on to that creates a contrast between the lights and darks of your subject. And if this was fine art, again, the application of your contrast in your drawing is more flexible. In scientific illustration and drawing, your job is to describe the object with as little artistic interpretation as possible. So with these lighting conditions, depiction of contrast is just to kind of soberly, find edges and shapes and things like that. But contrast will tell you texture, volume, planes, surface details, and that kind of thing. Back to the pumpkins. So that said, if you're in the field drawing for like an eventual, more developed illustration, using those artistic techniques can be a great help to remind you of the essential details of your subject that you can go back and refine later into a more scientific depiction. And shading, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit today, is one of the concepts that is, going to help with that. And depending on the medium you're using, there's a lot of different options of how you can go about that. Let's see here. And so shading is a drawing technique that'll give your viewers of the drawing the cues necessary to interpret the piece and learn about the subject of your drawing. Depending on the medium, there's some tried and true methods to describe edges and volumes and things like that. Like with pencil and other dry media, there's a possibility of like an analog application of this material. Let's get a piece of paper out. We're not going to do it now, but I find with pencils, you're much more able to like use the edge of the pencil to do gradients and things like that, and use the point to describe lines and edges. If you're using a pen, I'll use a Sharpie, which is not great, but it's more digital. It's on or off, and that is kind of an interesting difference between the pencil and the ink pen as choosing for what you're going to take into the field or what you're going to use in the studio. Because if you're defining, I'm not going to do the pumpkin yet, but like if you have a round shape that has an edge and the lights, let's say the light source is coming from here and the shadow is coming from over here, this is definitely being a shadow. So hatching is one technique you can use to, as you guys all know, you guys know drawing already, to kind of like create, highlight points. And then cross hatching obviously is taking another line there. Contour hatching is making the hatching move around the shape that helps define it. Stippling is then, another technique for but with the pen, it is definitely an on or off. Like you're creating these things based on what your eye is going to do with those applications of pen. With pencil, it's a little bit more forgiving, as you know. I use both in a lot of different situations. So that's just kind of examples of how I use these techniques when I'm doing drawings like that. I don't normally, do a lot of things that are going to turn into a purely scientific illustration. I have, but it's less likely for me to, put that into play. And what Amy tells you, Amy, is it people are mostly the biology majors?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Great. So that is you're going to be speaking to, not, internal medicine kind of technical illustrations or gearing or, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of why I chose like a pencil or a pen to kind of set you up to be able to do almost anything you could describe in a field or things like that. So I think, on to the example. So I think what I'd like to show you guys is the pumpkins. Oh, they're on already. So, and also, Amy, do you have any questions for me? We didn't really talk about like definitely what you wanted me to cover on this, but are there any specific things that you'd like me to touch on?
Not really. I mean, you're doing well.
Okay.
Does anybody have any particular things that you want Tom to cover? Where there's also be time at the end for sort of question and answer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there'll be plenty of time for questions and stuff like that. I made this part kind of fall within the hour so that actually people can just ask questions during it if they'd like. If that works for everybody. So the first part, I think we'll just kind of like, I'm going to draw a card. And so this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, is to practice. I think that's kind of a key in improving in any sort of drawing or artistic or in whatever application you're doing is to take yourself out of your comfort zone when you're practicing, because especially with what I found in my nature drawing situations is same as my nature photography situation, you're never prepared to run across the thing that you have been waiting to see out there. So, and especially if it's a moving thing like a bird or something else, the more practice you do, the more likely you're going to be able to, get ready and capture that thing when it happens. And so these quick drawing techniques really help me find my footing of like what is essential, what's important, what can I extrapolate on when I get home, and like what is a feature about this particular subject that is important, what do I need to define. So on to the pumpkins. I'm going to pick a random card here, and it is, so we have 50 seconds. So anybody who feels like drawing along, we're going to have 50. You know what I didn't do? A timer is probably a good idea. That would make this a little easier. Timer. Seconds. So if anybody wants to draw along, please feel free. And we're going to go to the pumpkins, and the angle's the same. Like I see the angle that you guys see, so it'll be kind of a similar situation. So I'm going to draw in pencil. And so I'm choosing, so this is also, the reason I chose these 3 pumpkins is that, I'm going to pause the timer, is that, like knowing that pumpkin shape, the jack-o'-lantern shape, which the left subject pretty much has, that is where, your mind starts. But because the one pumpkin on the left is, real, the one on the right is fake, but the surfaces of them have some things in common and some things that are completely not common. So in a short sketch like this, which is, 50 seconds long, I'm going to try to make a comparison between the left pumpkin and the right pumpkin. I'm going to leave that middle fake candy pumpkin out because it's such a short amount of time. But I'm going to try to, make a nature drawing that is comparing two subjects. And so say like I have an oak leaf and a maple leaf or whatever, what are the key distinctions between those? So here we go. Timer starting. Oh my goodness. So then you guys need to see the pumpkin, so I can't change that. Well, that was fast. Okay, so well, I can't even see my drawing. Okay, so I'm gonna have to, let's stop this. Cancel. And so, what the heck is going on? Okay. There we go. So for me, seeing those two pumpkins, I think the difference is the kind of the rough shape of the left versus the smooth of the right. With only 50 seconds, less than a minute, you're not going to be able to make a big, you're not gonna be able to make a big swing at it. What you're trying to do in a nature setting, I find, is to capture enough detail that when you go back to the studio, you've given yourself enough information to develop that further. So even though these two drawings like really are telling me not a ton, they are telling me enough that when I got back to a situation, I could develop those into something a little bit bigger. The things that I was trying to look at were like the rough edge of the left palm, the irregularities of the left one, the mottled surface, the tighter edges, the stem that has more of a it's a little harder angles. The one on the right, softer, things like that. So ultimately, that is the quick defining thing. And so then if to use like a contrasty light situation, I'm going to, as we talk, just kind of continue to develop this a little bit to give an idea of what my next step would be to take some contrast and some shading and make this a little more helpful to move to the next. So if I had more time, I would do that. Does anybody like want to share like a project that they are working on? And like Amy, are there certain projects that people are working on that maybe people would tell me like why they chose those subjects?
I've got Brandy's. Was that a shrimp? Let me get. No, Brandy's crayfish. Brandy, would it be okay for me to put that share screen and show that you're drawing?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let me. So Tom, can you give me permission to share screen?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. How do I do that? Share screen. Multiple petition. Let's see. Oh, it'd probably be under you, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Or, would it be on that side under the participants, Amy? Is that how you do it?
Let's see. So one thing, you could try making me the co-host.
Okay, I can do that. Stand by.
I mean, there's a broader way to let people share screen, but I don't know. Can't remember how that That works.
I just made you the host.
Okay, cool. That works. Okay, so here's Brandy's crayfish. Brandy, did you want to talk a little bit about why you chose that one, or things that you're struggling with?
Oh yeah. So I'm really struggling with how to show the transition between light and dark, as far as color on the body and the claws. Oh yeah, I sent another photo.
Yeah, so let me show you so this is the photo of the crayfish.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. So one thing that would be very helpful, probably to do that drawing specifically, would be to see it in black and white, and take the color out of it, because that will really help you see where the light areas are and then the dark areas. It's kind of obvious, like the back of the head where it goes into that piece of shell, that's probably one of the darker points on there. So you can kind of know, like, okay, that's probably going to be my darkest point on my subject. And then like that highlight on that near claw is like really helpful with probably the lightest part on the whole subject. So you kind of know that's your range. And if you're able to turn that into a black and white, it'll be much easier to kind of see that range between that darkest point behind the head and that highlight on the shell. And that will probably help. And what I would suggest doing is you don't start, at the lightest point or the darkest point. I go to the middle points. That kind of helps me. And for me, squinting my eyes sometimes helps me see the value better, because color, I know now from just a lot of doing it, what colors kind of read in black and white as different shades. Red tends to be like a medium dark kind of gray, so I'm guessing that body part is going to be kind of your medium to medium dark part of your subject. And so it's also the most consistent color. I would guess, if you turn this into a black and white, that right behind the head, that reddish color is going to be kind of an even gray. And so that might be a great place to start, is like just define it. And let's see here. Amy, can you see me?
Let's see. Yeah. Let me actually stop sharing screen.
Okay.
Otherwise your image is too small.
Okay, so I'm gonna make that, I'm gonna turn down this light because you cannot see my drawing at all. Just a second. Stand by, everybody. Actually, back to the pumpkins. Okay. I'm gonna unplug this thing and then change this. Sorry, everybody.
So Brandy, I'm going to put your image in Photoshop so I can make it black and white so we can see what Tom's thinking of here.
Oh, great. Awesome.
I would like to maybe share mine at some point too.
Okay, cool.
Wonderful.
I think I kind of screwed myself in my idea because I wanted to do it at night so I could show bioluminescence, but the rest of what I'm trying to portray is going to be really hard to just show like dark figures of. Maybe it will make it easier on me so I don't have to do so much detail, but the shading is going to be really key to a dark scene like that.
That is true. That's true. Yeah, well, let's take a look at that when we get a chance too. And so I'm starting, I don't remember what this looked like, what the lobster looked like, but I'm just going to kind of like give my guess of what I remember it looking like. And so here was our darkest point behind there. So one thing you can also do is, if you're worried about like tackling the original piece, make a photocopy or like print out a copy and practice on it, because that drawing that you spend all that time on, it's beautiful, and you get this worry that you're going to screw it up, and that's a big worry for all of us. So if you want to like take a photocopy, then you can kind of practice like, oh, this is kind of a, if this is medium, like he said, then I'm going to make it medium. And if this is the darkest point and here's the lightest point, then if I just start bringing it together, then it'll start defining itself. And then I can go to the darker areas in the eyes and this is probably not anatomically at all correct. There's a claw over here somewhere. But then like build it up. And if you do it in pencil and you do your practice, then you can like cut back into it a bit. But what I would suggest is definitely go into the like a photocopy as a start, and then you can start building things up. Especially with pencil, it's very forgiving. Like you can definitely come back and work it pretty good, especially if the paper's solid. But does that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
Of course,
Thank
of
you so
course.
much.
So Tom, let me just quickly share screen so I can show what the image looks like in black and white.
Perfect. Do I need to do anything or can just sit
Nope,
here?
nope. I've still I've still got the power. So here's image in black and white now.
Great. Yeah. So
So Tom,
that is,
he hit the nail on the head with that red is kind of a medium color, I think.
and so the thing that may be giving you trouble is that this image does have, it's a very similar tone. So it might behoove you to kind of use that medium tone, and like I was smudging, you kind of saw how I was smudging it. Do that for the whole back part of it, like the part from about here back. It's real similar in tone. So like if you just kind of like are able to use, much more careful than I am, but lay that in as your kind of medium dark tone, that's a great place to kind of work from. Because if that's all similar, then everything else will kind of, then you can add the details, like the edges will come together. And do you still have that picture up, Amy?
No.
I'm proving that I know nothing about drawing a. This is going to be embarrassing because my sister knows all about this.
Do you want me to put it up again?
No. I think that kind of.
Okay.
But does that kind of give an idea of how to move yourself forward? And I would definitely practice on something that's not your finished piece. But then also, like once you dive in, just dive in. I mean, you'll do a great job. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Amy, do you have another one to share? Oh my gosh, my lobster is terrible.
Adam, do you want to send me a JPEG or something of yours, and then I can put that up as well?
Maybe I can show it on my camera.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, great.
I've done like a bunch of these drawings, and I'll try to show you this, and then I might be able to do a share screen. But basically, I live next to a lagoon, and I'm trying to get a picture right here of the person standing with a light, and it's going to illuminate this rock where a starfish will be. And then I'm also trying to show underneath the water, there's going to be pollution, and then there's going to be pollution coming off of the lagoon itself. But to have it at night and have the bioluminescence on the waves is what my plan was, but it basically makes everything else dark. So I'm trying to figure out exactly how to go about showing this. And you can see that there's like I tried to do somewhat of a form of a cliff face here because it's right at the bottom of a cliff. But I don't know if you have any hints of, and you can see I tried to do rocks, but it's I find it really hard to try to get that exactly down. And maybe at night you could just maybe blur out the rocks and have more of just light and dark tones in that area or something, because it is such a broad beach that you're main focus will be the rock, and maybe I'm thinking of doing paints to make it a bright starfish so you can see it, and then the brightness of the starfish will show its dead limb. And then, but basically I just wanted to see if you had any ideas of how to do that. And then I know because it's illustration, I can have a little bit more leeway and make the water see-through and also show other organisms. But I just wanted to know for the uh, cliff face, I don't know if I can show you a picture of my screen, but I've taken a picture of it. And basically this cliff face, it fades away really quickly, and then you have this point in the background. So I was wondering if you had any ideas of, I've noticed looking at the picture, it's a lighter part of the image because it's right up close, but it's also to get the angle of it fading away really fast.
I
that
think you
I'm
kind of
struggling with.
hit the nail on the head when you talked about the diagram thing. I think that your image to me seems to lend itself perfectly for a super diagrammatic kind of setup where it's more
Yeah.
defined by lines and like if there's ways that this affects this, that almost use like diagrammatic arrows to do kind of a,
Yeah.
you boil it down because it seems like it's a lot about the environmental parts, is as
Yeah.
important as the bioluminescent part and the starfish. So that's one way. It's just like go straight diagram, and you could essentially like even do wherever the flashlight area was, just in that area you could kind of blacken that part out, and then to kind of show that, oh, in the diagram here this is showing that this part is night and that part is, but the whole system is not like that. And I think the viewer could
Okay.
understand that, like, okay, this area
Yeah.
is showing the night contrast. Another way you could do it, which would be harder, would be to go reverse. I mean, take like a black surface and bring it out of that. So say, take a piece
Yeah.
of black paper and then draw lighter and lighter things on top of it. So you don't have to lay down all those dark
Okay.
colors. That would be
Yeah.
another way to do it. But
Okay.
I like
But
with
yeah, I
what I
guess
saw, it sets it up for a perfect diagram.
yeah.
Does that sound reasonable,
I
Amy?
guess I'm just struggling. Yeah. For me, I think what your biggest thing was is to just show the shading in itself rather than focus on the like the different pieces of it, because it's like
Yeah.
I could show textures of rocks all day, but it's not really demonstrating any part of it. I just need to show that as a dark surface, and then maybe show lighter parts of it being sand or something like that.
I think that would be helpful because I think that would be boiling it down to the most pertinent details. Because I think that the drawing you showed me, like it's right on track
Yeah.
with that, like with the cliff and then how it goes off to the point and then down with that pool and then that body of water. I think it's completely set up to use those details as like solid just hit points. Like this means this, and this is about this, and this situation creates this, and leave everything else out. Like just boil it down to
Okay.
its most basic concepts, because you're tackling a bigger concept. Um, like
Yeah,
it's not
it's just
just
destroying
like,
me. I'm like,
yeah. Well, you're not taking a pine cone and going like, okay, this is like the way the little leaves are pointed in this way. It's more conceptual, and so I think that because it's conceptual, the diagram setup would work best for you.
cool, thank you.
You're very
Yeah,
welcome.
it's been destroying my head trying to figure out how much detail I need to put into it.
Yes, I would boil it down to like almost like a cyclical thing, like and pick the 5 different things about this photo that are critical and what you're trying to explain to the viewer, and then just hit
Yeah.
those marks, bang, 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 and then everything else can be flat or go away.
And then fill in
or
the details later to show them. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like my lobster
Cool.
here,
Thank you.
where like this is a brand new lobster that's never been seen before because it has no antennas and has no, anyway. Adam, does that help at all? Like, kind of make
No,
more
that
sense?
that helped a lot. I've been struggling with going detail oriented first rather than, like you're saying, get the idea of the diagram down first and then add the details in later, which I think will actually help me
I
get
think
it
it
down.
will. It will, because your concept's very solid. I just feel like you're a little overwhelmed by all the different parts of it. And I think
Definitely.
it'll work well. Does anybody else have another
Thank you so much.
question? Oh, you're so welcome, Adam. Amy, did you do a drawing?
No, I didn't.
It's interesting because me being an artist by trade and Amy being a scientist by trade, there's been, the older we get, the more crossover there is. I've become more scientific and you're becoming more artistic. Was anybody else having trouble with Amy? What are some other people doing for their projects? What's kind of like some things that people are working on?
Does anybody want to volunteer some of the ideas that they've been working on? Just in terms of what the overall subject you chose was?
I guess I kind of have a question because I'm struggling, I guess, a little bit with mine. I kind of want to do like a big finale piece. So I'm working on doing a reconstruction of the Spinosaurus, and
Oh, wow.
I've done like a lot of like the fossil stuff is kind of easy because it's like I can see the bones are there, I can draw the bones. But I wanted to do like a picture of the Spinosaurus like hunting in the water for fish. And I'm having kind of like trouble of like how to draw the Spinosaurus because like I can't see it. I don't know if like you have any experience with that, but if you have any like advice towards that.
And are there references of this Spinosaurus that you can use as like a starting point that you've seen? Or do you have to kind of rebuild it from the skeleton?
There's definitely like other artists like renditions out there, but not a lot of like, but very like kind of like robotic poses, and I wanted to do something more dynamic of it like swimming or something. So
okay.
So
Yeah,
Peyton, one thing to think about is, and this is what people who do paleontology type scientific illustration often do, is choose an extant animal that you think is closest to the behavior that you're trying to show. And then, take a look at videos and photos of that extant animal and sort of figure out, okay, this is, so let's say that, if I remember correctly, Spinosauruses have kind of longish necks. So if they're, you're doing an image where they're, going down into the water, going after fish, maybe take like a great blue heron or something as a model for sort of how the neck might happen. And because they've got those big spines, the movement of the neck won't be exactly the same, but you can sort of get an idea of what overall shape might be going for, and then how might the presence of those spines affect that shape.
That's great advice.
yeah, that's good advice. Thank you. I'll think on that.
And that's a great project. I mean, that's a complicated one. Like taking the skeleton and then putting it in action. But I think that's the beauty of scientific illustration right there. I mean, the three examples I've seen so far are incredibly different and all so incredibly valid. Like that is the fun part of it. It's not a robotic field. It's very because the things that I know about scientific illustration is it gets presented as very unemotional and very kind of sterile. But I think just the subjects that you guys have chosen and the ways you're deciding to depict them is very unique and personal, but also like universally informative, which I think is a really good job. I mean, much better than my pumpkins. Well, does anybody have any more questions about like media or anything like that? Because like, I mean, I use charcoal and you know, technical pens and paint and all kinds of stuff like that too. So, you know, one way I do a lot of nature drawing is watercolors, is kind of a super helpful like technique for finished works, but also for quick sketches, because it combines so well with pen. So you can start with a watercolor sketch, just using, you know, colors of gray or values of gray, and then, you know, use a pen and draw over it to kind of define shapes and the edges and forms and things like that. And it sounds like all three of your projects, if you wanted to play around with it, I'm not sure if you have watercolors around. If you don't, you can use kind of like household things, like, you know, you can use charcoal and, you know, from the fireplace and rub it down and use it, or things like from the refrigerator that have, you know, an intense kind of staining tone. You can use those to kind of practice and things like that. And I find that's really helpful to kind of play with large areas of even or semi-even tones, much easier than a dry medium. So like Adam, for example, yours, if you wanted to like practice on some things, just using like some broken up charcoal pieces or something, and then just put some water in it and then just move it all around a piece of paper, and then boom, you have that tone in. And Brandy, you too, like if you wanted to use that and you pull a tone through that whole tail, you can get it very quickly and pretty evenly and define those shapes well.
And I've
I
seen
think
some
that-
really cool stuff done with sort of watercolor style using coffee, strong coffee.
Oh, coffee's great. It's it looks beautiful. It's a beautiful tone. And it's like really easy to really go dark and also to bring up light. That's a really good example. Tea, coffee, all that kind of stuff works really well for that. And the things that I would suggest for all of you guys is that even though you're into your final project part of this, and this I think is a big deal, is don't stop sketching. Like don't think that just because you're on that final project that now the sketching part's over. Like I would still play around with your subject, like Brandy with the lobster, like sketch it some more, like play around, just define it. Maybe since you defined it with lines, now do one where you define it with just like coffee shapes, no lines at all. And so then I'll get you thinking about the values, tones, shading, relationships. And Adam, same with yours, like put that one over here, do a whole nother one where you don't use a single line to define it. It's all just, you know, like broad shapes without a line. I think that helps get your mind around the relationship between those items. That sort of stuff.
I have a
Does anybody have any more questions?
Oh,
Case?
Sorry. I have a question relating to your favorite medium for highlights. Say if you're like working in watercolor, do you prefer to lay down like masking fluid before you put the color over, or do you rather like a white gouache or like a white Posca pen or something like that? What would be your favorite
I
way?
tend to do the white gouache. I love the idea of the masking fluid, but I can't conceptualize what's going to happen when it comes off. So I like to just, I don't know if it's cheating. Some watercolors would say it's cheating, but I love coming back in with that opaque thing at the end and throwing my whites back in. I'm a little bit of an impatient watercolorist too, so planning my lights tend to be a little bit difficult for me. Like I tend to just start laying things down, like, go, oops, right where I put this thing, I want to highlight. And so I like having that ability to come back in and pop that white back out. But any of those examples you said would work great. I tend to lean towards the white gouache just for convenience sake. I find it to be probably the easiest. Also, like sometimes I'll bring in, you know, like a white pastel or something to bring it back up, depending on what surface your paper is. But any one of those would be a great choice. I'd play around with, if you have all three or a couple of them, you know, try just on a practice sheet, give it a go. But I love the white gouache.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Can anybody tell me, like, you don't have to show your project, but can anybody share like what they're working on besides the three I've heard of?
I'll show you since I was just talking about working with highlights. I'm working on a dinoflagellate that is transparent. It's kind of hard to see,
That's great.
but yeah, thank you.
That's
Got a
looking
lot of
fantastic.
gouache. Thank you. Yeah, and here's the scanning electron microscope, correct, Amy? I think, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep.
But just trying to figure out which of those I want to depict, maybe both.
That's great. It looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think a little white wash in there would be perfect as a highlight.
Perfect.
Wonderful. You guys are doing well. Amy, you should be very proud of them.
I am.
Would anybody else like to share their project or some information about their project? Or else you have to look at my lobster again.
I'm trying to present the toxicity of some of the newts, and I'm finding there's a variance. So I don't really know. I guess my question is, how do I present it, the actual, like the TTX on the skin surface while showing the newt? And I'm struggling because I'm either showing, because it's so small you can't see it. So I like, how do you have you ever drawn things that you can't see, and how do you think about conceptualizing that? Because that's where I'm like, I don't even know what this looks like. I can't find images of it anywhere.
Gotcha. I think that would probably lend itself to kind of a similar thing, like where you'd want to do kind of like the newt, and then almost like a diagram to the side, and kind of go into the level, and maybe that diagram is more of a cross section of the way that system is formed, or something like that. So you can kind of see, like, here's the animal and it's separate, but then here is like an insert of the process that's going on in this animal. So that at a glance you can kind of tell what's going on. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that I've seen that and you can, and if there's like multiple processes that you're trying to do, you can have that, if there's multiple newts, you could have the multiple newts, and then have, like, you could even like range them on toxicity or something. I don't know. I know nothing about them, but like this one, and then like have like the reasons they are above it as kind of like detail diagrams.
I like that. Thank you. Yes.
I think that would really help kind of like the viewer just instantly go, I know exactly what's going on with this image. And I think that's the thing, is like that clear storytelling.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you need more than one image to tell your story, I think you use it. Kind of like I would think that atoms would be impossible to show with like one thing. Like the thing he's trying to tell has all these different pieces to it. And so he needs that kind of like flow of like, all this is important about this system. And I think that complexity is part of the main story he's telling. As opposed to, was it Casey? Casey, you had the
Dinoflagellate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that one's a little more like the deep dive, kind of like whoop, like you're going in. So the detail is of this single thing. And so the story is the 1 to 2 images, depending on how many you choose. And so you can really go into the detail on that one thing. And that story is easy for people to understand. I think some of the other stories I'm hearing have more steps to them. And so how you tie that story together is kind of part of the trick.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What do you think, Amy?
Do you want to do another longer pumpkin?
Yeah, let's do a longer pumpkin. Ooh, what can you? can you put the lobster back up?
Yeah.
Because I want to try to draw that lobster better.
Okay. Actually, it's a crayfish, I think. So,
Trying to think of what I can do with this lobster. Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay. So I think we should just, like, if anybody has some paper and stuff, I'm just gonna do my overhead view here. And so, so if I was gonna draw, so this is like when there's a single object, I'm gonna define the shapes first. And so the main shape I see is that kind of like body, head conglomerate. So that's just kind of like where I'm starting. They're kind of like, I already started wrong. There we go. And then where the things hinge. This is nice because there's segments. That comes out. That's wrong. But if I was drawing this like in the wild and not on a picture, like you'd have to get to where I got a lot faster. But I think for now, this is good. And it's interesting because like instantly I did the thing that I was saying don't do, like draw what you see, not what you know. Because I instantly thought I knew what a lobster looked like. And so I was going to have the tail going out the back. And the thing that I think I suggest to everybody, because I teach normally more life drawing classes where like there's a model and things like that. And the thing is, like, I know there's trouble when you're only looking down at your piece of paper. If you kind of catch yourself only looking down and not at your subject, you're going to get yourself in a little bit of a pickle. Just because you're then drawing what you know about that subject, not what you're trying to learn about it. There's another thing. I didn't realize that their eyes stalked out like that a little bit. Okay.
So Tom, when you
Yes.
started drawing, it looked like it might not fit on the page, but it did.
Kind of.
So is it just practice that, you sort of have an idea of how large those parts of the crayfish need to be on the page?
Yeah, I rushed a bit where I placed it. Like I placed like the first image part way too far to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did kind of put myself in a pickle where like these are off the edge. So if I caught myself doing that, which I did, and we weren't doing this, I would have just started over. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't have tried to fix it. Like there's certain things that like, yeah, I'm gonna work through this and get it figured out. But there's also points where, and I have done this a lot over the course of, drawing for years and years, is there's certain points where like when you make a critical error like I did, it's better to just like start over. Like don't try to put lipstick on the pig, just kind of like get back and start it over, and you're going to have a lot more luck.
No pig.
Right, exactly. And so because that is a big problem, I think, for drawing, and especially in what you guys are trying to do, which is to really depict something as it is that you can get stuck, like you can tighten up very easily in your drawing. And I think that is a thing that if you start feeling like you're getting tight, then back away, draw it again, give yourself a time limit of like, do a gesture drawing of like, what is a thing about this subject that I may have missed in a first look? Because I think these are interesting. My camera just turned off. What the heck? Hang on. New camera. Don't know it yet. Should be coming back. Ta-da! Because the things that I'm finding really interesting just looking at this are these interesting dark points like down here. Like I don't know what those are. Are those just like little hinge points, Amy?
Yeah, so it's part of the, let's see. Yeah, I think it's part of the kind of way that the tail is hinged, so that those parts of the tail segments don't get, well, I was going to say that they don't impede one another, but maybe not.
Because it looks like, how many legs does a lobster have?
Well, it should have 4 walking legs and then 2 clawed legs. Yeah.
Okay, because these are 2
So,
tucked
yeah.
under there. Gotcha. And it looks like of its walking legs, they kind of can, 2 are folded forward right now, but I imagine they can all go forward and backwards kind of.
Yes. Yep.
So
This
like
is good
what?
because we talked about this morning in animal locomotion.
Oh, good. It seems like their legs are undersized. I guess they're normally underwater.
Yeah.
Is that why that they would be? Okay.
Yep. So gang, that brings up an interesting point because remember I said that underwater size, especially at the larger sizes, is less of an issue. Because these crayfish are usually underwater, they don't need really strong legs to hold them up because their own kind of buoyancy. They're not hugely buoyant, but their body is buoyant enough that the buoyancy is kind of what's keeping them off the bottom. So the walking legs aren't holding the body up by very much. It's the walking legs are mainly just, pushing them forward, moving them forward.
Ah. And so you guys did a walk today?
Yeah, so we did the Fort to Sea trail out by Fort Clatsop, and then did a dive at the Edmonds Underwater Park.
Oh, that's cool.
So several fish and a whole bunch of sea stars and a whole bunch of anemones and
Nice.
1 ratfish.
What does a ratfish look like? I'm guessing it looks like a rat.
Not really.
Oh. Of course not.
They're called ratfish because they've got these sort of long
whisker.
tails.
Gotcha.
That they look like sort of oddly shaped little sharks with big
Oh,
heads.
okay. Yeah, I've seen those.
Okay.
So Amy, like with these illustrations that the class is doing, like what is kind of I read your PowerPoint and stuff, but I can't remember totally like what is the final product? Like what is what's the what are you gonna turn into?
So the final project is essentially a piece that shows it has to have some sort of really clear message because we've been really emphasizing communication in scientific illustration. So between I think 1 and 4 images, however you want to incorporate text, that sort of thing. But there needs to be a really clear message that's being communicated with the project.
That's great.
So Tom, I'm going to stop sharing so they can see your drawing.
Oh, perfect.
They could, right now it's just a little, there we go.
Oh, I'm just a little guy?
Yeah.
So there's my little guy. So the thing that like I if I was going to do it over, so like that's the first time I've ever drawn something like this. So obviously I goofed up a lot of different things, but the thing that I learned is like, so that little tricky dark spot behind the head creates a weird optical illusion too, because it's dark but not behind something. And so that is a thing I find difficult because color, so what, darks recede, lights advance. So naturally your eye is going to see something dark and you're going to think that it's behind something. But this is a dark thing that's in front of something. So there's a little bit of a trick of how to depict things that are colored counter to what you naturally think. So for example, like atmospheric, distortions, like off in the distance, it loses, everything's, there's the lights are darker and the darks are lighter. So you lose a lot of contrast the farther you get away. So that's one thing. So if you want to make this one, like what I did here is like this one looks farther back because it's less, there's less lights and darks. It's just like this one has more detail. So, and also it's bigger. So size is an indication of placement. And so because this one's bigger than that, obviously it looks like it's in front. This one is less, worked. Like this one has more contrast between light and dark. So this one seems farther away. This part was tricky because this was the darkest part on it, but it is also not behind here. They kind of like meet up together. So that one's kind of a weird optical illusion. But kind of like if you get yourself into a thing where it doesn't quite look right, you can kind of look at something similar to that. Like I use big swings, like looking outside. So I'm looking out my window and I see a tree right there, and then I see a tree like 3 blocks away. That tree, the needles are like they're defined. I can see them. They're separate needles. Back there, it's just a gray shape. So if I was going to draw it, the tree in front would have like these very specific shapes, and the one in the back would just be, a blur. So to kind of define like this in the front and that in the back. So you can use those tricks with your drawings too, especially the guys that are doing single items. If your image is starting to seem a little flat, you can kind of use that like a little more like illusionistic tricks to make things push back or seem more important than something else in your image, if that makes any sense at all.
I noticed you left the legs on the far side off. Is that also to make that illusion? Pretty
much, yeah. I just kind of like, I couldn't really see him that well, so I just kind of left him out. In for a final project, like for a defined finished piece, I probably wouldn't leave them out. I'd probably get them, in there somehow. I don't know how much we could see, but because this is at this angle, I might take a little artistic license and remove them so it doesn't tip the plane of the subject a little too much. But yeah, I didn't even notice I did that.
I did have a question on, you said you use pen a lot, and I didn't know, is there something different you do with shading as far as using pen goes?
Yes. So if I was going to do this, I'm just going to just quickly, I would go about it the same way. I'd find, can you see that? Okay. So I'd find the shapes, like just using, light strokes, and try to define it as quickly as I can, sketching it, because you can kind of like find the shape. But then I would do the same thing as I did with the pencil, which is I'd go over it more and more the more important it is. So, and then like here, how the head went in, I can't remember how that worked, but with an eye somewhere in here. One thing you can do is also, if you have like so say like I created this thing, I remember the tail did something like this. And then it had these, and it had some legs, like that, some legs in the front way, and then that one might have gone back. Anyway, so say I started sketching it like this. I said, okay, this is, this is roughly how I wanted it to look. Then maybe I start with a lighter pen than this, and then you go in with another pen and start defining, like refining your shapes based on, and so you can kind of use it as like, oh, there were lighter strokes with the other one, and then I can develop it. And so if that was even a lighter color, I could, step it from a lighter gray to a medium gray to a darker gray, and it would kind of have a more, instead of just a line drawing. And then if you wanted to, you could make, like you could trace over your finished one and get like a precise, accurate, like if you did that and you could had a light, I can't see through it. Anyway, that can kind of help you build it up with pen. Does that help at all?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. So yeah, so you can even like take, pencils and start it off with pencils and then go into it with a marker. That would be a very valid way to solve this situation. Just combine your materials. So you can get the tone of the pencil and then the kind of the lines of the pen. And then you can get more of a range in tones and surfaces. Amy, am I fired?
No, you're doing well.
Because of this.
I was thinking how incredibly fast you were going and getting, the really good overall shape just from memory. I'm impressed.
Well, that literally is just practice. Like,
Uh-huh.
because you train your eye to see the thing. And I think that is like that as much as practicing without caring how it looks and how it turns out is, and doing it over and over, like just pick, a stack of notebook paper and have 20 of them and like draw 20 of the same thing over and over and over and over again. And once you do one, put it aside and don't look at it for the next one, and do the next one and do the next one, and then assess them. Go like, okay, what do I like about these? What have I learned? And that can kind of help you, get yourself closer to your actual shape. When I was younger, like way younger, I was a teenager. There was a person who drew. I mean, we were at a family function, and somebody drew our dogs, like
right,
with
yeah.
some colored pencil, and then just some quick marker, like that defined them. And one was like chewing its tail, and the other one was doing something, and they captured it like in 20 seconds. What our dog's personality. And it was just like, boom, my mind was blown. Like that quick little sketch defined so much about the subject matter. And the thing is about that is that sketch didn't just happen in that moment. It's all the practicing that got them there. So that they could see, like with almost intuitively see the essence of the subject and be able to capture it. So I think that is, a thing I would just suggest is just practice without caring how it turns out. And then and mistakes are happy mistakes, and then learn from those, and then kind of like keep going. Because like, you'll train your eye to see differently, and it just becomes automatic. Like you just will start seeing things differently and not noticing. And you'll notice when it's wrong first before you notice how to fix it. Unfortunately. So you'll see like, oh, that doesn't look right, but I don't know what to do about it. But at least you know that it doesn't look right. And so then that's where you kind of go in and like, okay, I'm going to work on this one part of this thing and see if I can work that out. Because for me, thumbs, like I cannot draw thumbs. I've been doing it for 25 years and my thumbs still don't look right, but they're better. Just because I can't make them look like they fit on a person's hand quite right. So I know it's wrong, but I mean, they look way better than they used to, but I think you just kind of keep working on the thing that you can intuitively tell doesn't quite work for you. And then just keep refining that until it's the way you want it.
Any other questions or comments for Tom? My younger but much taller brother. You can't tell on Zoom, but I'm only 4'11" and you're what, 6'2"?
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't know quite how it happened. Like we're more genetically related than I'm more related to you than anybody else on the planet. But
Okay.
Well, everybody, it was a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. So if you guys have any questions, Amy, just if they want to ask me questions or whatever, just give them my email or
Okay. Cool. The phototainment one is fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
Whichever one will work.
Okay.
I can answer questions and stuff.
Okay. Cool.
Great.
And what if they're interested in doing? How are you advertising your life drawing classes.
Oh, the classes, the online ones?
Yeah.
Oh, I will send you the link.
Okay.
That's a great question. Well, my friend Carrie's working on my website right now,
Okay.
and I'll just get it to you and you can get it to them.
Okay. Cool.
'Cause
Cool.
that is, I have ones coming up in December, so I will send it over.
Okay,
And
cool,
they're
cool.
free and fun. I mean, it's more me acting like a fool. So, well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure.
This is
And
good.
Amy, thank you for having me. This is super fun. All right, good luck, everybody. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I mean, I will do my best to answer them.
Great. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, guys, have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
You too.
Thank you.